Ladies and gentlemen, announcing the reunion of the Summerlin Rotary Club. Good morning, everyone. I'm Linda Davis, the president. This is the shirt that I was supposed to be wearing 1 year ago when I went to Honolulu for the Rotary Convention. Oh well, too bad, so sad. I am so grateful to see you all this morning. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being dedicated Rotarians during one of the worst times of our life. Thank you for all living through it. And for being respectful of our decisions as a board of directors and for me as president. Your support this year has meant everything. Before I start crying, let's have the Pledge of Allegiance led by our Rotarian of the Month, Kevin Janison. Would you please stand? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Kevin. Please be seated. We have a lot of guests in the room this morning, and I think it's important to acknowledge them first. So we'll start with the table immediately to my right. I see Jackie Parker over here. Jackie, please stand. Jackie has applied for membership in our club as a returning Rotarian. Thank you, Jackie. We have our speaker who will be introduced in a few moments. At the next table behind Jackie, we have Cynthia. Cynthia, please stand up. Cynthia is recently relocated here from California and is interested in membership, correct? Yes. She's already a member, actually. I lied. She's a member in San Francisco, and I'm sure we'll be hearing more from her. South San Francisco. All right. Thank you for coming this morning. We have Virginia with George this morning, and welcome, Virginia. You feel like more of a member than a guest. And at the back table, we have Matt and Julian, and they have applied for membership as corporate members in our club, and we had a delightful lunch with them recently. Michael Holden, would you like to introduce your guest?
Yeah, everybody, this is Dale Darkness. He's with Serving Our Kids Foundation, just being with us as a guest.
Thank you very much, Bill. Glad to see you. I hope at a future meeting we can hear more about your organization. And let's see, those look like the usual suspects. And we have a special guest or two in the back. Greg, would you like to introduce your guest this morning?
Good morning, I'm Greg Townsend, and I was the past chairman of SOAR, Safety Officers Award Recognition. And that is where we highlight opportunities all over the valley, 18 different agencies. I no longer ramrod that after being involved with it for 18 years. Jamie is now our chairperson.
Jamie, welcome. And Jamie is a Rotarian.
I am a visiting Rotarian from the Las Vegas Rotary. I have been a member since 2014, and SOAR has been a really big part of my Rotary experience. It is a passion of mine. I actually have the Boulder City Fire Trophy with me today. I just thought you guys might like
Very
to
cool.
see one of the trophies. Our next ceremony will be at Las Vegas City Hall on September 13th from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. So you can mark your calendars for that.
And we can go.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we had to cancel the SOAR ceremony in 2020 because of COVID, but instead we actually went to all of the individual departments. So I was running all over Southern Nevada,
Yes.
presenting trophies. So that was a pretty interesting.
Well, thank you so much for being here this morning.
We do have advertising opportunities.
Oh, isn't that great? Thank you so much. Okay, and at the next table, we have two guests of Russ Dazio. Russ is not here this morning because his dog poisoned itself yesterday and is under 24/7 watch. Would you gentlemen please introduce yourselves?
I'm Bill Lieutenant, and from a small insurance company, specializes in athletic insurance, and this is my dad, Mark.
Oh, thank you both for coming. And Russ told me that Mario is also interested in membership, so that is terrific. We'll hear more from you later. I see all the usual suspects except for Mel. Who is that, Nancy?
Oh, that's my husband, and he's been around, he keeps telling me.
Mel, you're still hanging around. We like that. Okay. And at the table right in front of me, we have Kathy Stenberg with us from the North Las Vegas Rotary Club this morning. She's going to be our photographer because we have such a special program today. Rick Engstrom has a guest.
Yes, we have my former partner on LAPD, Mr. Joe Dillinger. 51 years almost.
Oh my goodness. So happy to have you with us, Jim. Goodness. Wow. Well, we'll talk to you about your buddy Harry Bosch at some other time. Okay, and Robert, introduce your guest.
Some of you will remember Susan Cooper was a member of our club for many years, about 10 years ago, so welcome.
Welcome back, Susan. Welcome back. All right, and have I forgotten anyone? I almost got fired yesterday, by the way. I put out a postcard with the wrong information. And my postcard editor, Richard Peterson, I caught one of them, the wrong dollar amount, but Richard said, you also had the wrong mask rules in there. Sorry. Oh, well, so sad. Anyway, I see we have one more person joining us. I think she might be a guest. Let's go on with our inspiration, and David Dendy, would you please lead our inspiration this morning?
Hold your applause till afterwards. So I came across this devotion by a lady named Diana Butler Bass, who just writes phenomenally, and so I've adapted what she wrote, and I thought I'd share it with you today. It's called Cicadas in the Time of the Pandemic. Emergence creates the possibility of song only in community. In the last 2 weeks, I've watched the cicadas emerge from their 17-year underground life. And I can't help but compare their slow crawl up the neighborhood trees and their increasingly plaintive song to the hesitant surfacing of people around me after our nearly 15 months of guarded existence. There's a cautious wonder about it all, this coming into the light after so much night. Not all cicadas react to liberation from their previous life in quite the same way. Some fly about almost as if drunk upon their release. Others seem far more tentative and deliberate. A few seem remarkably wary of this new world. They don't know what they have been set free for a single purpose. They don't know that they have been set free for a single purpose, to mate, sing, and die. Whatever fate awaits, they are above ground now and will make the best of it while they can. I can't really say I love comparing myself to a cicada, but I appear to be one of the wary ones. When I got the vaccine, I thought I'd want to run into the streets singing with joy like a giddy giant cicada. But in recent days, I'm struck by how anxious I feel, far more anxious than any time in the pandemic, except at the very beginning. I hate the masks, yet I find myself hiding behind it still. I dislike the distance, and I hold myself at length from others. I question those around me. Is this person safe? Have they been vaccinated? What invisible threat might those bodies harbor? If I join the song, will I die? We humans aren't like the cicadas whose emergence and actions are instinctual and cyclical. There are certain things we do because we are creaturely beings, but we are also shaped by habit. Habits are actions we repeat, practice over time, that become second nature and comfortable. Experts argue as to whether we create habits over 3 weeks or 3 months, but the science agrees that human beings can and do change behavior by embracing new habits and living into them. The pandemic forced us into new habits. not running to the store, not gathering in big groups, wearing masks, creative celebration instead of accepted rituals, ordering online, sharing space in our homes for multiple workers and students. Think of all the things we did differently in the before times. Now think of all we've learned. The patterns and structures of daily life have been transformed. Several months into the pandemic, I heard someone remark in an interview that many Americans had gone through some 12 to 15 years of technological adaptation in 3 months. We zoomed our way into the future, taking on a dizzying array of new habits and practices on the journey. People talk about return to normal or wanting our old lives back. I think my recent struggles with anxiety relates to that. I'm wondering what I want back and what habits I'd like to keep from these months. This makes me wonder how many people sense the same. Business as usual was disrupted. Old pursuits of status and success fell away, and new habits were formed. It has been hard, yes, but even now I recall these recent months with gratitude for the many family meals shared, for doing the best we could to celebrate college graduation, birthdays, and Christmas, for being together to protect each other and save the lives of people we didn't even know, for the odd victory of finding toilet paper, Lysol, vanilla, yeast, and chicken breasts at the grocery store, for the poetry and prayers we read over the dining room table, for all the things we learned of each other's lives, for Zoom to not mean racing through the airport and lugging bags on board a plane, but as an invitation to sit in my cottage and talk to people on the other side of the world, sharing struggles and dreams. On a daily basis, we were surrounded by fear, loss, and death. And yet, in the midst, something was being born about meaning, purpose, and resolve, about courage, humility, and trust. Those of us who survived became different people, even if we've only barely noticed the change. That's what I've been listening for, the new voice struggling to speak. Somehow the words I once knew seem inadequate for these particular days. The timbre of life has been altered, and I long to hear its new cadence surface. I almost feel as if I'm straining to learn a new language, one truer to the strangeness of this unfamiliar and uncertain place, this poetry of survival. All this brings me back to cicadas. Have you ever heard a single cicada sing? I haven't. Since they've arrived, I've noticed that individual bugs seem completely quiet. They only sing when they can synchronize with others. After living so long in silence, their emergence creates the possibility of song only in community. And then they form a loud chorus, music completely unique to their singular resurrection. Maybe that's what I'm waiting for, the song that will arise from our emergence. In the meanwhile, words seem tender, incomplete. I'm listening for the songs of others that we might synchronize, finding our voices as we are birthed again in the world. Am I alone on this journey from the depths toward the light, or are we legion? I long for a world abuzz with a noisy chorus of empathy and connection, of courage and wholeness, of joy and hope. Oh, sing to the Lord a new song. Sing to the Lord all the earth. And may we, the Summerlin Rotary, find our voice anew as we learn to sing a new song together to serve the world in which we live. Amen.
Thank you, David. And now would you please lead us in song, Dennis Ortwine? Everyone stand.
Please join me in singing God Bless America. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you, Dennis. So happy to hear from you. And Dennis keeps me informed that Jeannie Ebner had a birthday recently, and she's doing well. We're happy to hear that, too. Our sponsor this morning is Steve Finley. I can't see that far. He's in Hawaii. He said he postponed his trip 3 times, and this time he's going. Our craft talk this morning is from Neil Roth, who said, give the sheriff more time. Thank you, Neil. So without further ado, Mike Levy, would you introduce our speaker?
I would be extremely happy.
Our speaker really needs no introduction. He's been the sheriff of Clark County for now, is it 7 years, Joe? 7 years, and basically was a member of Metro for 30 years. 33 years, exactly. See? I flunk math sometimes, but basically he's a native. He's been in Las Vegas his whole life, as I understand. No? You know what this means, right? Well, 0 for 3 so far. That's not bad, but no. He needs no introduction. Anyway, please welcome our Sheriff, Joseph Lombardo, and thank you much. Now that I woke him up.
Thanks for nothing, Mike. So you're probably wondering how I even know Mike, because we have a dichotomy in personalities. I'm pretty sure of it. So I went through a divorce. That's how I know Mike.
We all thought you arrested him.
No.
Was he on your side or the opposite?
He was on my side. He did a pretty good job too, so if you ever need him and you're worried about your retirement, he's the guy you need to talk to. So good morning, everyone. Good morning. So it's good, everybody's back together, right? Yeah. And then you have the choice to whether you want to wear a mask or not, right? That's a good choice, right? So I think it's wonderful that we're all together, and similar to, well, not similar to what most people experienced, where you weren't out in public and you had to sequester yourself within your residence if you choose to do so, and stay away from harm. In the past year, unfortunately or fortunately, your police department was out working every day. We were considered essential employees, so because you can imagine why, because we had to ensure that we were protecting society and the community and preventing you from falling to harm as we went through this pandemic and process. So just to give you some understanding, I get this question quite often: how many of my employees, hey Kevin, how are you? I got distracted, he was staring at me there. So yeah, how many of my employees were affected with the virus? So I have an employee base population around 6,000 employees. My budget's right around 1.3, 1.4 billion, 100 million here or there. And, so 1,200 plus. So yesterday it was 1,255 employees were affected with COVID. So Mike had asked me, he said, well, it's good the vaccines come out, a good percentage of your employees are probably vaccinated. And unfortunately I had to say no. And human nature, understanding of the unknown, inability to force their hand, a plethora of reasons why the employees chose not to get vaccinated. So unfortunately it's right around 46%. You would think it would be a lot higher than that, and so, but if you go across all of public safety, it's about the same across the board. And You know, I quite often get asked, why not? Why don't they get the vaccination? What's wrong with them? I wish I could give you an answer, a good, complete answer to that fact. But a lot of people, or a lot of the employees, especially of the 1,255, they don't believe they need to get the vaccine because they already had the virus. And we know the ignorance of that thinking, but sometimes it's hard to get past that. And I could force their hand, but why go there? It's not I don't want to make that a point of contention moving forward. And they got other things to worry about. They got to worry about doing their job and what we do on a daily basis. So I just wanted to put that in context for you. So it's interesting that we became 100% open on the backs of a herd immunity. And we knew that we weren't going to get there no matter how hard we tried. And subsequently, the decision was to make open the economy because we were suffering a slow death on the other side. So I was glad the powers to be made that decision, and we moved forward as a community and personal responsibility. Oh, sorry I brought you down. So we have three, is it only three? Three of you guys? So retired LAPD, correct? 100,000 years.
I think we have somebody from Denver also, right? Denver.
Hey, there's my insurance guy right there. Hey, Phil. So he said it's a little insurance company, and it's actually a big insurance company. And if you are in need of insurance, I highly recommend Phil because this guy's taking care of me. You know how you have that fear of dealing with paperwork and having to make a phone call and all the red tape that goes along with it? Well, you make one phone call to him, he does it all for you. So, little promotion there for you, buddy. So,
lawyer here, you got your insurance guy here.
yeah, I don't know what's going on. Yeah, they are. What do you do? What do you do? Yeah, I got my pastor. So I asked Mike what he wanted me to talk about today, and he said he didn't know.
That's a first.
But I think it's important for you, me being your sheriff, to give you some idea of what the hell's going on with crime in the valley and what my perceived threat is here in the valley moving forward. And I think it's important for you to know that. So first question out of these guys' mouth is, hey, what's going on with crime? You know, the guy's been retired for 40 years and he wants to know what's going on with crime. So, no, it's a legitimate question because I'm your sheriff, and that's normally what you would expect for me to answer, and I am going to answer it for you today. So under my tenure, 7 years as your sheriff, 33 years on the police department, and 45 years in Las Vegas. So my dad was in the military, so I traveled around a little bit before he ended up at Nellis Air Force Base, and I ended up going to high school here, and eventually stayed here and became your sheriff. So crime, in the past 7 years as your sheriff, we've had a decrease in crime year over year. That's a good thing, right? Okay. But unfortunately, this year, probably on the heels of the pandemic, anxiety, as you can imagine, job losses and everything that goes along with what we've gone through in the past year, we've had an increase in crime year to date. Unfortunately, as far as homicides, we count them as murders, not homicides. Homicides include self-defense and other jurisdictions that we're responsible for. So we count them as murders. We're up 36% year to date. Don't panic. You know, we have about 100, my jurisdiction's right around 1.7 million people, and the number is 51 for the year. So we've had a significant increase. But fortunately, Oh, it's not fortunately, I mean, because somebody loses their life, it's very important. Every one of them matters. But in the beginning of the year, right around March, April, we were up 120%. So homicides from the previous year are coming forward, and hopefully some of our prevention efforts have taken place. But the majority of those homicides are associated with domestic violence and gang activity. So those are the majority. So randomized homicides, you walking down the street as part of a robbery, or you're caught up in a bad place at a bad time, is not occurring. So a lot of it, like I said, anxiety associated with domestic violence is the key cause of the numbers we are experiencing currently. Another number that we're experiencing currently, which is troubling and affects every one of you, it does affect you because you drive in a car every day, right? We've had a 31% increase in fatal accidents. So is that an arbitrary number because people didn't drive a year ago? I don't want to make that assumption, but we have a lot more people out and about, and we are experiencing a significant increase in fatal accidents. And that's not unique to the Las Vegas Valley. The homicides are not unique, and fatal accidents are not unique. You're seeing that across the board, across the United States. But in particular to your 5 larger cities, they're right around 300-400% increase in homicides. So we're managing that fairly well, and we will continue to experience that as we move through the calendar year. So in general, violent crime, so if you put all your Part 6 crimes, and that's your homicides, your rapes, your robberies, aggravated assault, you put all those into the violent crime category, we are down 4%. So we're in a good position, reference violent crime. Now when you talk about property crime, which is a completely different category, you know the difference between violent and property, we are up 5%. So we're seeing an increase in home burglaries. And the biggest issue we are dealing with in property crimes is stolen vehicles. So we've had a 26% increase in stolen vehicles across the board. So don't go to the convenience store and leave your car running, right? You would think that would be an ignorant act. It is an ignorant act, but it continues to happen on a daily basis. People just lay in wait. And that's part of what we're dealing with in the crime picture. So a significant issue that we are dealing with, and the world is dealing with in particular to law enforcement, is what we're dealing with as far as mental health and homelessness. We are seeing a significant increase in homelessness. Here in Las Vegas, the environment used to control it because of the heat and everything else goes along with it. People went to different areas to more conducive to survivability, but we have become saturated with the homeless population. So in the last 2 years, we've seen a significant increase with the homeless, to include mental illness, which is a predominant characteristic with the homeless population. So your police department has to deal with that. So over the years, law enforcement's had to expand their resume. These young men here would tell you they didn't have to deal with some of the quality of life issues when they were police officers within their environment, but law enforcement has had to move forward and adjust to deal with social issues, especially things to do with domestic violence, homeless, mental health, and all the social ills that we deal with as a society. Police officers tend to be the answer because you dial 911, right? So if you have a problem you can't deal with, you dial 911. And as a matter of our oath, we can't walk away. We have to come up with a solution to deal with that. And in particular, to mental health, it's very troublesome and very difficult for us to manage because it usually ends up in incarceration because we don't have the community resources for those individuals to direct them to or redirect them to, and which is a vicious circle as we deal in law enforcement. And the reason why I bring that up, because in the last 2-3 years, that has become a significant issue for us to deal with in law enforcement, and we're expected to solve the problem. And that becomes very burdensome. So Mike asked me, he goes, well, what are your plans? Are you gonna retire? And I go, yeah, I'm close to retirement as the sheriff. And he asked me why, and I said, because all the things I just described to you. It's become a big issue. I'm seeking a new challenge, and I want to give some youth the ability to bring some answers to the problems. I'm wore out, and hopefully I've done a good job for you. And I don't know why I digressed to that. Never mind. So what I also want to do, I want to bring you some good news before we get into Q&A. So everybody's seen what's gone on in the past week about the young male juvenile kid up at Mountain Springs that was found murdered, and we had no clue. We had no clue what was going on, and the mother, well, we believe the mother identified the photograph or the drawing of the juvenile and came and told us, that's my kid. And I think my husband, my ex-husband, or my current husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, committed the murder. So we call out the dogs, go forward with an investigation, and we find out she misidentified the kid. It was not her kid. And her son was safe and sound, and there was no issue. So we have to start over and go forward. And fortunately, I mean, it's unfortunate because the crime happened, but fortunately, we identified the young juvenile, and he was from San Jose, California, and the mother was missing. And so I just got a text while I was sitting over here, and the mother is taken into custody, and she is the suspect associated with the death of her son. So we don't have to deal with that in the back of our minds, and the concern for our grandkids or kids moving forward with that. So we have a solution to that problem. Unfortunately, it was a problem. But I think that was a little bit of good news. Every once in a while I get some good news in my job, and I think it's important for you to hear about that. So what questions do you have for me?
How do you take care of yourself if you take care of all your employees in the city and everything on your shoulders? How do you take care of your mental health?
Good question. I think it's marriage, right? You know what, you have to have a good structure around you, at work and at home, right? And I have a very supportive work environment. I have some good people that work for me, and I think the important piece on that question is delegation, having the confidence in your individuals that work for you, and because if you don't, it'll eat you alive. Because you can imagine law enforcement, and these guys can attest to it, it's a 24/7 endeavor. You know, quite often, you ever get a vacation sheriff? No, not really, because the proliferation of cell phones and emails and all that, and accessibility to you, and plus it's my responsibility, right? I asked for it, but I think it's important for people to realize that's a big question, because usually in law enforcement, you know, we're John Wayne, leave us alone, you know, we can handle it. But we're seeing that is not the case nowadays, because we deal with all the ills of society on a daily basis without a break, and it's important for us to realize that. So we have a very robust system within the police department, and it's called a PEEP, Police Employees Assistance Program, and they're dedicated employees with psychologists that we hire to support, and it's anonymized, so they could do it in secrecy, and there's nothing that affects their career in a negative way by asking for help. So especially whenever they're involved in, like, responding to this young juvenile in a murder scene, or involved in an officer-involved shooting, or all that stuff that goes along with it. So it's more than just me, it's the entire employee roster that we have to deal with. So now you move outside of police work, you have to have a support system at home. Unfortunately, Hollywood depicts the law enforcement profession as single, alcoholism, domestic violence, and everything else that goes along with the career, which in fact that is not the case. There is a big support system inside and outside. But fortunately, we do have some bad eggs. So I don't know if you saw the accountability report that came out in the RJ that we posted, that shows, it gives you some transparency or insight on our internal discipline process. And I'll tell you right now, liberal, conservative. The police departments are the most transparent organizations in the world. There's a lot of pushback on that from the media and the public. You need to be more transparent in that aspect because we are held accountable at a lot higher standard than any profession in the world. There's super oversight, and I understand why the oversight's there. I mean, we take away people's freedoms, right? We affect arrest, and we get involved in critical incidents, and we have the ability to take someone's life. So there's some responsibility and accountability associated with that. So I forgot where I was going. So but as far as the transparency piece, it shows that there's a huge oversight in what we do on a daily basis. And part of that oversight, and this is where I was going for, and the legislature just opined on this in the last session, is there has to be some system in place, a red flag system that watches your employees, that puts up trends for a particular employee, maybe excessive force on too many occasions, and you see a pattern in practice. And so you address that with some police assistance and psychology and everything else goes along with it. Maybe they're involved in domestic violence. But unfortunately, our number one issue in the police department is domestic violence for my employees. And we've had, we average probably over year 20 plus arrests with employees involved in either DUI, which is another mental issue, or domestic violence. Unfortunately, that's the case, but we're part of the human race, right?
Are you experiencing officers retiring early and not having new people choosing to be police officers, the way we were reading that around?
Yeah, that's a good question. So you got the whole defund the police process, and fortunately, we've had a pretty supportive government support of us in law enforcement. There hasn't been that conversation has not really gained any traction here in Nevada, in particular Clark County, but yes, we have had an effect. So in the early throes of the pandemic and George Floyd and all the issues associated with that, and we had a handful of folks separate because of what they experienced during the protests and in response to the protests. And so it wasn't really an issue at that point because it was a small number. But because of the result of the pandemic and the economy, I couldn't have academies. Okay, so it's a balancing act because of the budgets, and it's understandable. And then so when we did spin up the recruitment and hiring process, we didn't have as many people standing in line as we used to. Just for clarification here for the room, it takes me about 1,000 applicants to get 10 candidates. So recruitment is very important, and also the evaluation of the recruits is very important. So, but we're not getting those numbers that we experienced before. So traditionally we had 6 academies a year. We're down to 3. We're trying to spin that up to 5 because of the economy opening up and the budgets are getting balanced. But probably in the next 6 to 12 months, we'll have a good picture how well or how much that is going to affect us moving forward. So, but we've been able to fill the last 3 academies right now. So a lot of people don't know is when I talk about academies, I'm talking about the police side, but we also have academies on the corrections side because this is a merged police department, consolidated police department. I have both the city and the county. I'm also your head jailer besides your sheriff. So I'm responsible for the county jail. And so I have corrections officers. I have 900 in today's numbers of corrections officers I'm responsible for too. And I have a jail, which is Clark County Detention Center, which has an average daily population of around 3,200 inmates that I deal with on a daily basis. Yes, ma'am.
So 2 things, Joe. Behind you is an applicant.
This guy who wants to be a cop?
Yeah, he wants to be a cop.
Well, I think he's got a long way to go.
And my question is, since marijuana was legalized for recreational use, what impact has that had on law enforcement?
Great question. So, did everybody hear the question?
Yeah.
I thought it was going to have a huge impact, but fortunately it hasn't. But it has had an impact in two different categories. One is quality of life. How many of you in your daily travels, especially if you go down in a strip environment, are dealing with people smoking marijuana? The smell of it, the atmosphere of it, and dealing with it. So that's been an unfortunate piece of the legalization of marijuana. So the legislature passes recreational marijuana and promotes it for tourism, but they don't force the purveyors of it, the sellers of it, to educate the tourists that you can't consume it in the public, okay? So that's why, I don't know if you paid attention to any of the legislature, but they passed this consumption lounge concept to give those individuals some place to consume the marijuana. Whether they do it or not, that's another question, okay? But we all are dealing with it, and I know you're dealing with it as far as the smell and the atmosphere associated with the consumption of marijuana. So that's been one thing, but as far as law enforcement, in the early throes of it, we had an increase in fatal accidents. So vehicle one driver, who is the at-fault driver, we saw a significant to the 50th percentile of marijuana being in as part of the equation. Drugs, alcohol, and when I say drugs, to include marijuana, were included in the evaluation of the person's blood when they got arrested, involved in an accident. So we had it was pretty big, but to be frank with you, Linda, it's leveled out. We don't see that significant increase anymore. So it's just like a new toy, anything, you deal with it. Oh, I got the ability to smoke marijuana now. Maybe that's slowed down a little bit. And we're seeing it not having as a large of an effect as we did in the beginning. But as far as robberies of dispensaries and that kind of crime, we don't see a significant number. But what we have seen, and part of the push for legal marijuana was to remove the black market, and that has not been the case. Okay, so there's a lot of taxes associated with marijuana. So if you have 20 bucks in your pocket, you go to the legalized one that has a significant tax liability associated with it. You receive a small amount, or you go to the black market and get more bang for your buck. It has not diminished the black market.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, I noticed a significant metro presence on the strip Friday night. Is that to dissuade folks who might have ill intentions, or is that new?
Yeah, so it's no secret. You saw when we did the first initial opening of the casino environment, it was like 25 percentile, then it went to 35, then 50. And that early throws, that was on the heels of the stimulus checks. What we have noticed as a result of the stimulus checks, there's been a significant increase in overdoses associated with opioids. And that's across the board. That's not in just Las Vegas. And we've seen that in the second iteration of stimulus checks. But the reason why I bring that up, it brought in a different environment it's been directly correlated to the stimulus checks, unfortunately, because they're intended for the right reasons, but unfortunately people choose to spend the money different than what it was intended for. And they showed up, and the demographics changed on the Fremont Street and Las Vegas Boulevard. So we had a significant presence of reallocated resources, moving resources down in that environment, because it's obviously our mother's milk of our economy, and so we had to address that. So that has continued now into summer, because now we're 100%, we want to ensure there's a safe environment down on the strip, and we're dealing with all the issues associated with that environment.
And we have time for one more question.
You're
You get to pick.
I got all the time you need.
Diane.
Are we having a significant increase in gang members moving to Las Vegas?
Not a significant increase. Because part of that question was moving to Las Vegas. So
Coming into Las Vegas.
we've had, yeah, it's not necessarily. So what a lot of people don't know what's going on in California. They've had 3 or 4 year problem of balancing their state budget. And so, as a result of that, the answer to that was to depopulate the prison system, because that's a significant draw on any government budget. So what happened was they decreased sentencing guidelines. So if you did 80% of your sentence given by the judiciary, you got depop from jail. And trying to balance the budget because of that cost associated with open prison beds, everything else. So for an example, at Clark County Detention Center, it cost me $155 a day per inmate in there, so times 3,200. So figure that you can send your kid to Harvard. But as a result of those policies in California, which has a huge gang population, they've gone down to almost 40% on sentencing, what you have to do as far as time served on your sentence. And so that a lot of those gang members have gotten out of prison, and they're proliferating now. So we're also seeing it here in the Nevada State prison system. And so the gang, so not necessarily increased, they've always been there, but they've been in jail and now they're getting out, and so we're seeing a proliferation of that crime. The other thing that's changed in the gang environment is it doesn't really go across racial divides. So traditionally you had the white gangs, the black gangs, and the Hispanic gangs, and the Asian gangs. They're all mixed gangs now. They don't separate normally along racial divides. So we had an ability to track them a little bit better back in the old days, and these guys can attest to this, but now it's just hybrids, random, 3 or 4 or 5 guys getting together and decide they're gonna be called a Depop gang or something, whatever name they come up with this week. So as far as a significant number, no. But as far as their activity, yes, there's been a significant increase.
Sheriff Joe Lombardo. I've heard a rumor, Joe, that you might be interested in being a Rotarian. Is that true?
No.
All right, sit down. Thank you very much. We really always appreciate hearing from the sheriff. Julie, you joined us after the program began. Would you stand and introduce yourself, please?
Hi, my name's Julie. I'm new to the area, and I'm just excited about getting involved with activities like this.
Oh, terrific. We hope that you'll talk to one of our membership folks and consider joining our Rotary Club. So happy to have you with us. It's just great to see a room full of people this morning. Well, now we have something very special. Dave Cabral and Kevin Janison, would you please come forward? And Michael Turner. Michael led our fundraising committee as president-elect, and Dave was one of our key figures. Yeah, did you guys coordinate your clothes?
Yeah.
So Michael chose Kevin. I'll let Michael take over to say why he chose Kevin, and David will introduce Kevin.
Well, yes. Does that happen to you on the weather?
Not usually that way.
Yeah, Kevin was very instrumental in the production of the TV show for our pizza and entertainment night. He not only conducted the interviews, he was involved in the production aspects of it as well, and we cannot thank him enough for what he did for the club in putting that together.
Oh, thank you, Michael.
Yeah, and I want to emphasize what Michael just said in terms of the help that Kevin gave us on that production. He helped in designing it, putting it together. As you know, he was the host. He brought Clint Holmes into the show, which I think was the star of the show. And Kevin, as we all know, is our own TV Channel 3 meteorologist. He joined the Summerlin Rotary Club in June of 2018, so 3 years ago. This is his anniversary this year, after many years, I guess, of speaking at Rotary clubs. The other thing that Kevin does, I think a lot of us know, is that he's the author of the series of children's books Deputy Dorkface. And Kevin spends a lot of his time in the schools educating children on the importance of reading. And I'll let him talk about that a little bit. But certainly for all of his activities on behalf of working with children in the schools and what he has done in helping us out with getting the show put together, Kevin is our Rotarian of the Month.
I appreciate that. We should point out that it was Dave's idea to have that event, and so I was just happy to do what I could to kind of move it along with a few folks that I knew. I didn't realize I've been a member for 3 years, and this is like the third meeting I've shown up for, right?
You show up to get awards and checks, right?
If you would do a lunch meeting, I'd show up a heck of a lot more. 7 a.m. comes awfully early for those of us. But I just, it was the least I could do because Summerlin Rotary has been just, so much in my heart with the help with sponsoring some of the school presentations that we've done. Started with a little meeting with Dennis and Robert way back when, and now it's sort of grown. We've done some...
Oh, that's the live feed.
This is why I always have a mic that clips onto my tie.
You're a great professional.
That's exactly right. But I started out with a little lunch meeting with Dennis and Robert and a couple of others, and we visited so many schools, and I look at them as motivational literacy presentations and try to get kids pumped up for not only reading but writing. They don't seem to think the art of writing is gone unless it's LOL and the rest of the jargon that OMG, the rest of the jargon they do in their text. So if you haven't been to one, where's Triple G has been to every single one.
That's Greg Townsend, by the way.
That's right, and we're looking forward to going back out in the fall, thanks to what you guys have done. I'll let you know when we start scheduling them again. And it's good to have Triple G at the schools because if I forget any of my jokes, he jumps right on in and has them down. But for what Rotary has done for the students in Clark County, so I can't thank you enough, and I'm looking forward to now finally getting back out and doing it again. So thank you for what you guys have done.
We have a little gift to facilitate your return to the school.
Well, thank you.
To carry your books in.
I hope we're going to send more than those.
Ta-da!
Oh, that is awesome.
Little
Look at that.
bag.
Oh, that is great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. We appreciate everything you do. We had hoped that his wife Terry could join us this morning, but she's out working. Oh my goodness. All right. So it's time for announcements. Michael Turner has some announcements.
Yes. Okay. Few things that are happening this Saturday via Zoom. We're having the planning meeting for next Rotary year. Members are invited to join in. It's just not the officers, directors, and chairs. The Zoom link is on the calendar if you want to join us. Number two, we have the digital advertising program that we did last year.
What time is the meeting on Saturday?
Oh, the time of the meeting, thank you, is from 9 to noon. 9 to noon on Zoom. Okay. We have the digital advertising program that we did last year. Information about that is also on our website. So please take a look at that, and it's a great value. We would have the sponsor, even though Steve is in Hawaii, so he couldn't do it today, but the sponsor would come up here and have a couple of minutes to talk about his or her business. And you get your logo on the website, and also the logo is on the meeting that you are sponsoring. And the last thing is that we have the debunking party coming up on July 6th at Claire and Neil Ross home. We're putting that together. Ben Berard from Ketchef is doing the catering for us, and Steve Finlay is doing the setup for the event. So you can register online, or you can just give us a check or cash, and it's $25 a person. Okay, and it's going to be starting at 6 o'clock on July 6th. Once you register, we'll send you information on the location of Claire and Neil's home. So we have some exciting things, and the debunking party is going to be exciting because we're going to celebrate our president.
Getting rid of me!
We're going to celebrate Linda's great achievements this year, despite some of the challenges that she encountered. So we're going to do that. We're going to have some surprises as well. So please join us for those events.
And as everybody knows, Michael Turner's done a great job this year as president-elect with fundraising. Dave Cabral, what do you have to announce?
A real quick announcement. I don't know if you got an email from me about a week or two ago. One of the projects that were just in the early consideration stages for Michael's year is the idea of starting a veterans-based satellite Rotary Club to focus on veterans and military.
How many veterans and military do we have in the room today? Raise your hands, please. All right.
Starting Rotary Club, so I'm going to put it out again. Many of you have answered. If you're interested in having just an organization meeting to talk about it, that's what we want to know. We don't know if it's a lot of work to do, but we think that it's a viable idea. We'd like to move forward with it. So that's what's going on with that. I'll resend the email again, and then when I get out the responses, we'll get something organized.
Excellent, excellent. And we do have a couple of extra minutes. Michael Holden, would you like to let your guest speak about his organization for a couple of minutes?
Yes, if you don't mind.
I would love that.
Mr. Dale, one more time with serving our children.
Excellent, come forward. Tell us all about it.
I just want to say it's a pleasure and an honor to be here. Just to let you know, 3 years ago, Kevin joined the Summerlin Rotary Club in June, right? July of 2018, he chose Serving Our Kids Foundation for his 3-degree temperature program. And I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but this guy is excellent in telling us what the temperature is going to be here in the valley. So Kevin, thank you for that. But Serving Our Kids is a 501c3 nonprofit organization based out of Henderson, Nevada, that serves the children in the Vegas Valley, weekend food bags. And we're honored to be able to be a support system for this community in this valley and to be able to serve the schools throughout the valley. We started 15 years ago with one school and 20 kids, and the last 16 months has been absolutely brutal with everything that's going on because of COVID. But we didn't close our doors. We kept our doors open. We distributed food throughout the whole valley. And because of our volunteers and what we've been able to do, we served students from over 185 schools throughout the valley and upwards of 5,000 children each and every week to provide them with food bags so that they were able to stay nourished and be able to go through with their online studies and things like that. So we're certainly looking forward to August when we can get back to some kind of normalcy with kids in schools and being able to go back and be able to deliver the bags to them. So I want to thank Michael for meeting with me last week and allowing me to become a part of the Summerlin Rotary Club. I had a meeting a few weeks ago with the Green Valley Rotary Club, so it's great to see that we have Rotarians behind us now and working with us to be able to move our mission forward, to be able to serve more children in the Vegas Valley. So thank you so much for your time and for being here, and I'm sure I'll be back later on to tell you more.
And we would welcome you to apply for membership.
Well, we thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So on July 6th, as well as getting rid of me, we will also honor the Rotarian of the Year. Will everyone who has been named Rotarian of the Month please stand? Okay, great. So you will be getting a ballot and you'll get to vote for one. Now don't be confused because we considered Lynn and Richard Peterson as one. Well, there you go. So you will get to vote on that and it will be your decision who will be Rotarian of the Year. This month we have the opportunity to attend the Rotary International Convention. It's online, it's virtual, you can register online and it will be free. And I think we just had another guest join us. Tanya, would you like to introduce yourself?
No, they said no.
I'm so sorry.
Sorry. Tanya Waggle, I'm a visiting Rotarian from Las Vegas After Hours.
Ah, great.
Sorry, I had a nail in my tires.
Oh, no. Yes, we've been speaking. I'm so glad you made it this morning. Glad to have you with us. You have a golf event coming up, correct?
Correct. It's going to be on June 25th
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I want to recognize Pat Riley this morning because Pat has booked our speakers this year. Stand up, Pat. He's done a great job, really great job. And I'm having a little gathering on the 25th of June for the board of directors and the committee chairs, and Pat can't join us. He has some lame excuse about being at Lake Tahoe. I mean, my house, hot in the backyard, Lake Tahoe. I just don't get it. So even though we've kind of come through this pandemic and it looks like we're vital and strong, I think we still have about 5 minutes left for Happy Bucks. And we don't really have a container in hand, but Joe Germain, would you help me out? Would you help me out? Who's happy this morning? Have dollar, will be happy.
I'm happy about my new briefcase.
Can I borrow that?
All right, get those dollars out and get in line. Oh, we're going to use Kevin's new briefcase as the receptacle. It's a big one. Stuff it, stuff it.
Hey, a couple of happy bucks here. It's good to be back with all you people, and it's
Let me put some money in my briefcase.
All right, all right.
You can't get it all back.
Okay, let's move right along here. See lots of money. Thank you, Kathy.
$5 for seeing a bunch of people that I love.
Ah, thank you, Susan. So,
Here's $5. Thank you again, Sheriff.
thanks, Robert.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, Maxine. And Dorothy. All right. Moving right along, Jill Branson, the Dynamic Community Service Chair.
Thank you for everyone being here.
Ray, thank you very much. And Matt and Jillian have contributed. Oh my goodness, the dollars are flowing freely. Michael Turner, take note, this is how it's done. You embarrass them into it. Okay, hey big spender, thanks Jackie. Oh. Ooh, the big spender.
Thank you very much, and 5 for the fact that everybody's here.
Yes.
5, and we're doing well.
All right. Hey, thank you, thank you. All right, moving right along.
$5 from our newest member.
Oh, great.
$2 for me because I'm cheap.
Okay.
Better than usual.
All right, Claire, thank you very much.
For the Las Vegas Metro and for Joe's leadership.
Oh.
Whatever he does next.
Right, right. Thank you, Mel and Nancy. Nancy's talking, please listen.
I was happy enough to be called to teach at Dean Allen. I'm a college teacher, instructor in the state and a nurse, and they have 1 million books that they're throwing out.
Maybe we should get those.
And I sent a lot of them to Florida, and if you want to donate any of them to the...
Greg Townsend, get with Nancy. All right, thank you. Oh, thank you, Pat.
I'm a grandpa.
Yay!
Youngest kid, outdoors.
Yay! Ah! And good morning, Sean.
$5 because I'm here.
All right, Tanya. Thank you.
And the rest is because I got my tire fixed for free.
Wonderful. All right. We've got 2 minutes left. Get those money in there. All right, Diane and Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, great. Thanks for being here, both father and son. Thank you, Julie. And Dave Austin, thank you. Riz, thanks very much. Nice. Yay, Riz is here in the flesh. All right. Thanks very much. Any last minute announcements? Our next meeting will be next Tuesday night at 5:30 at Frankie's Uptown in downtown Summerlin. And if you can't find it, I guess you're out of luck. No. Give me a shout and I'll help you find it. We have one more breakfast meeting this month. Hey, I'm talking up here. We have one more breakfast meeting this month. It'll be the 22nd, and Rick Engstrom has invited a speaker from the FBI that I think is going to be just terrific. So I hope we'll see you all there. Steve Finley, it's time for you to lead the four-way test. Does Steve have a surrogate in the room? Dave Patrick.
Okay, everybody stand, please. The four-way test.
Of the things we think, say, and do. First, is it the truth?